Okay, welcome to our barrel room. We're going to be doing something slightly different today. We've got a little surprise just over here in the corner, but before we get to that, take a look around our barrel room. Okay, so we've got a real kind of surprise today. What we're going to be doing is actually kind of showing you one of the projects that we kind of worked on last year. Kind of a bit of a happy accident. So this is actually something really special. When you're looking at this, it's a clear liquid, and you're probably thinking it's just water. It's not much to it, but actually no. This is very, very special. This is our very first and very own Brandy. And it kind of came about last year as a kind of a little bit of a happy accident in our vineyard. Basically what happened is our Solaris grapes, they did very, very well. They ripened extremely quickly and caught us a little bit off guard. And basically by the time we came to harvest them, essentially they were too ripe. They were very, very sweet. Their sugar level was so high that the alcohol potential was around sort of 17% or something crazy, which a lot of people say, brilliant, why wouldn't you make a wine out of that? But actually it's a little bit too strong for what we wanted to make with it for wine. Now, kind of happy accident, we thought let's make the best of a kind of bad situation at the time. My dad has always been a massive Brandy fan. He's slowly converting me as well. I've always been a whiskey guy, but Brandy is also absolutely delicious. So we thought, why not have a go at making a Brandy? So that's what we got. So we've got our kind of fermented Solaris. I think it's Solaris and Reichensteiner, and a little bit of Pinot in there as well. So we've got our fermented wine, essentially, and then we put that through a copper still, and we distilled it. And this is the kind of that product now. It's a fairly whopping strong spirit in there. It's around 65%. And what we're going to be showing you guys is now its journey, basically, from this to then the end product. So what we're going to be doing is showing you kind of what we do from here by kind of preparing our barrels. So we're going to be putting it into two different types of barrels, maybe three. So we're going to be aging it from this kind of spirit into what it looks like normally. So your coloured spirit, and something that tastes a little bit more drinkable. We're going to be aging it in both bourbon barrels and whiskey barrels, potentially. Seeing how much we've got in here. So we've got our whiskey barrels over here, and we've got a bourbon barrel back there. We're going to age that for a few years or so. So what we're going to show you today is how we kind of prepare that barrel and how we kind of get that started, get that ready for then filling it with this. And then we're going to hopefully age that for a few years, see where that kind of takes it. The nice thing is it's a purely experiment for us. We've never done this before, and that's kind of the whole fun of it. So yeah, we're going to age it in that for a bit of years, and then the plan is to kind of get a Pedro Ximenez ex-sherry cask. We're going to age it in there for a few years as well to give it that sweetness, that kind of raisiny, buttery sweet flavour that we're looking for. So so what we're going to do is show you the whole process really from start to finish, and you come on this journey with us. So stay tuned for the next little bit. All right. So there you go. That's it. Fresh out of the old tub here. It's bloody strong. I'm actually going to give it to you, Toby, to try. I already tried this. I know what it's like. So you take that.
That's so strong.
What do you think of that?
Definitely needs a bit more softening.
You get the kind of the sweetness though, a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite sweet. You get a real burn in your throat as well.
What we like.
Yeah, I can see the potential in it.
Okay, so obviously a little bit of information about kind of how it kind of got to this stage. So it doesn't just start out this, it starts out as our kind of fermented wine, essentially. And then how we get to this bit, this distilled liquid, this distillate, if you like, is using kind of one of these, obviously on a lot bigger scale, but this is kind of just to show you a little representation. So what we do is this is being distilled through a copper still, a 300 litre one actually. And what that does is it gives us loads of kind of contact with the spirit in the copper. And why that's good is because copper it absorbs all those yeast cells and any kind of sulfur compounds that are produced during the fermentation period, which are actually undesirable in the spirit. We don't want that. And basically what happens is we heat this essentially to boiling point, our liquid, and it obviously kind of evaporates. It forms a vapor which passes up through here, and then slowly starts, as it cools, it condenses back down into our distillated liquid through our condensing coils down here, and off we would get our spirit down here. Obviously that's a pretty kind of basic introduction into kind of distillation. I don't know all that much about it myself, but it's interesting to learn about it. And the other thing that's quite good about using copper is it keeps our distillate quite sweet, which we do want, because we want to kind of start off with a fairly sweet product, which we can then round out inside the barrels, which are going to add that flavour. So when we put this into the barrels, all that colour from the barrel, from the oak, is going to leach in that char flavour. If it's kind of the bourbon barrel we're using, that kind of vanillins that they're going to come in from the wood, it's going to add a load of different flavour. And then we put it in the Pedro Ximenez cask. That's going to add that raisiny sweetness that we're after, which is really, really exciting. So yeah, that's that. Okay, so the next bit we've got to do before we actually fill these barrels with our brandy is we've got to prepare them basically. We've got to kind of make sure they're sealed properly. And the way we do that is we're going to start kind of adding kind of hot water to kind of basically expand all the wood, because these guys have been sitting for probably almost a year and a bit now, unused. So they're probably almost definitely going to leak. So what we're going to do is add that hot water. We're going to slosh that around. Hopefully that's going to expand the wood right against these kind of metal brackets here to really kind of open up the barrel essentially, and get rid of any of those cracks that we don't want. And then what we're going to be doing is overnight we'll also fill it with cold water and leave that overnight, and then we can kind of identify where our leaks are going to be, and then we can basically plug those with some candle wax or something along those lines. So we'll start filling this with kind of hot water to begin with. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is basically, now we've got our hot water in there, we're just going to rotate this barrel kind of constantly for a little bit, so that basically the hot water is in contact with the whole barrel. So it's as simple as literally just rotating it around like that, and make sure we get contact with kind of all areas of the barrel. Where we've got a little bit of cracks here, just like that, you can start to see where the water's leaking out. Hopefully we're now going to expand this. So the next thing we've got to do is basically hydrate the barrel from the outside in, and we're going to do that by standing up on it upright, and we're going to do both the top and the bottom, and essentially just the same principle, just going to go with hot water, and we're just going to let that kind of sit over the top of the barrel and go in. We're going to leave that for about an hour, and we'll come back and do the bottom. Okay, so now we've done that. We've done all the hot water rinsing out and everything. That should be pretty well sealed. But now what we're going to do is we're going to fill it overnight. Fill it with cold water, right at the top. We're going to leave them overnight. And that way we can come back in the morning and we can see if anything has leaked, and then we're ready to fill them up with our brandy. So let's do that now. Okay, so we've just been up and we've got back, we've checked on our barrels. We left them overnight, basically fully full of water. And basically that allows us to check if we've got any leaks overnight after we prep them, doing the kind of heat treatment for them beforehand. So now they are ready to fill with our brandy, because thankfully we didn't have any leaks, so that was a good start. And what we actually need to do now is something that's a little bit optional, is we're going to kind of fill the barrels, but we don't actually have enough brandy to fill all of these barrels. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut this with water and explain what that means, what we're doing in a second. This, like I said, it's an optional kind of stage, because essentially you could just put the spirit straight in there if you've got enough to fill your cask or your barrels, if you've got smaller barrels than us. But for us, what we have is we've got 2 barrels that we want to fill, but we don't have enough brandy to fill both of these barrels right at the top. And what that means is basically the more kind of headspace you leave in the barrel, the more we're going to lose to evaporation over time. So we want to try and fill these barrels as much as possible. Now one way we can do this is to cut it with water before we put into the barrel, which is going to increase our total volume of liquid to then fill the barrels as close to the top as possible. And what this also allows us to do is bring the percentage ABV down, which you'd have to do anyway at the end. So it means less work at the end of the aging. So what we're going to do actually is, we've calculated it as around 90 litres of water that we need to add to our brandy in order to basically get it close to filling both of these barrels and get it down to our desired percentage ABV. And I'll show you how we do that calculation in a minute. So our brandy is currently sat at around 65.3%. And that's obviously very, very strong. You wouldn't want to drink it like that, which is the whole reason we're going to be aging it. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut that with water and bring that right down to our goal kind of percentage of around 52%, which is going to be our goal kind of aging percentage. And that's just our goal. Your goal could be slightly different. So they say kind of like a goal kind of spectrum to be aiming for is around 50 to 60% ABV that you want to be aging your spirit at. The lower end of that spectrum, in those 50s, you're going to be extracting more of a kind of sweeter candy kind of flavour, more those vanillas right from the barrel, whereas the kind of higher end of the spectrum, around the 60s, you're going to be getting more of that spicy, peppery note. So if that's more your style, then that's kind of the percentage you can be aiming for. But for us, as the brandy, we're going to be kind of bringing it down a bit lower, so we get a bit more of a sweeter flavour that we can then age further in a different cask later on. So yeah, so by reducing our percentage ABV down to 52%, which is, like I said, what we're going to be aiming for, that allows us to extract those sweeter flavours. It allows us to get more out of the barrel than if we were keeping it at its original 65, because we'd be getting much more of a punchy alcohol flavour rather than actually extracting the most out of our wood that we're going to be using. And we're using ex-whiskey barrels and ex-bourbon barrels. And the bourbon barrel is obviously ex-American oak, and I believe the whiskey one is too, actually. They're just being used for different purposes. So we're going to show you this calculation now of how we worked out how we kind of get to the amount of water that we needed in order to bring our percentage ABV down to where it should be. Again, we're kind of double checking ourselves now, because this is a learning curve for us. So we'll show you how we do that calculation now. Okay, so in order to work out how much water we need to bring our percentage ABV down to our goal percentage of ABV, we need to do the following calculation. So we start by taking the original percentage ABV, and we're going to divide that by our goal percentage ABV. I apologise, my handwriting is pretty bad, but go with it. So then what we're going to do is you're going to multiply that by the volume of liquid. So once you've done that calculation, we're then going to minus the volume liquid again, and that's going to give us our liquid volume needed. So for us, let me show you what that looks like. So we've got our brandy is sitting around 65.3% ABV. And then we're going to divide that by our goal. So like I said, we want to be aiming for around 52% ABV. Now we currently have 340 litres, but I'm actually going to convert that into millilitres for this sum. So we're looking at 340,000 millilitres. Okay, so once we've done this calculation, we times that by our volume liquid of 340,000 millilitres. That comes out at 426,961. Now we're going to take away our volume liquid again, so we're going to minus 340,000, and that's going to give us a total of 86,961. So round that up, that's 87,000 millilitres, which is 87 litres of water that we need to add in order to get our percentage ABV down to that goal of 52%. Okay? Perfect. Okay, so what we've done now is we've worked out our amount of water that we need. So we've got our 87 litres in here, and we're basically going to siphon it. Well, we're going to attempt to siphon it. I'm not sure if it's high enough, but we'll give it a go. So we're going to siphon it from here into our brandy, and then we're going to give it a good mix around. So let's see if it works. So let's get our... So we make sure we're getting we'll get one end right in the water, and we're just going to use gravity to then transport that from one container to the next. So in theory, now, I'm not sure it's going to work. We've got this massive hose, we're going to let it go anyway. So we should one big powerful suck, gravity is going to take that down to this. So let's give it a go, shall we? Okay, so here you can see our little makeshift setup we've got, and essentially we are siphoning our brandy into our barrels now, so we're past the point of return, and it's going well. As you can see, it's filling. You can come up here and have a look. So here is our brandy going in, and we're filling this one. This is going into the bourbon barrel at the moment, and then we're going to fill up the whiskey barrel after that one. But yeah, exciting. Let's hope it all doesn't go wrong.
We're in.